truth. And because we're so desperate to belong, and to be exiled is just the worst thing for us, we'll deny all these parts of ourselves just to meet this one thing, to belong. Because exile is just, it's worse than death. You know, we've even exiled parts of our psyche. We've exiled all these wounds that we carry, the shame. We've tried to exile that out and sort of disconnect from it and go, oh, no, I'm fine, there's nothing wrong, I'm okay. And it's like, no, we've got to bring, it's like, how can we truly understand what it is to be with diversity, whether it's in humanity or in the more than human world? We don't even know how to be with all the different parts of ourselves internally.
And what pieces do you feel have been like exiled collectively from the human experience?
Oh my God, how long have we got? I mean, literally, we could just sit here and make lists, couldn't we? That would take like an hour. So yeah,
well, I suppose I'm asking.
More.
I'm asking so that we can call some of those parts back in here.
Okay, okay. Well, let's start with shame. Let's start with what we've just been speaking about, which is that we've been told literally from the moment we open our eyes, from that first breath when we arrived in the world, however we arrived, we subtly, covertly, overtly started to get the message: you're not welcome as you are. You're not welcome as you are. You're not welcome if you're crying. You're not welcome if you're miserable. You're not welcome if you're being too loud, or you're being too quiet, or you're being a bit this, you're being a bit that. You know, all of the subtle ways that we start to go, okay, oh, I've got to be like this in order to stay inside the circle of belonging, inside the nest of love. I can't be exiled outside this original family, this original circle, because I literally won't survive. We literally won't survive. You know, because we're small beings, we're babies. You leave a baby out for 24 hours, it's going to die. So that fear is very real. And even though, you know, rationally we might say, well, I'm a grown up now, and of course that's not going to happen, it's like it lives in the part of the brain that doesn't understand linear time. You know, it lives in the amygdala, and that still believes that reality is the same now as it was then. And then add in cultural oppression, diversity, exile, you know, all of that. And it's almost like that just affirms the belief that we already carry. It's like I've already got a belief from that primary imprint when I came into the world that I'm not welcome as I am. And from that place, I'll look for evidence to prove that it's true. And let's face it, there's plenty of evidence out there. Some of it is projection. Some of it isn't true, that we are welcome and it's just our wound playing out. But actually, it's quite a lot of it that is true. You know? Because we don't, as humans, I think we just have lost really what that deep understanding is around what it is to feel welcome, to what it is to belong. I mean, I'm in that quarry. I'll be in that quarry till the day I die. But I know there's something in this. There's something in it.
And there's also, I feel like there's there's such an emphasis on this kind of like being your best self and optimizing everything. And then that doesn't leave space for people that are going through genuine difficulties.
No.
Because if everything's just their fault and they should just be able to like snap out of it. Yeah. And then if they're bringing, I've had this experience within communities. I've seen it where somebody can get exiled because they're going through a hard time because it's bringing the vibe down.
Yeah.
And I feel like there is this sort of balance, because of course, like, we do want to connect in deeper to our health and to our vision and our possibility. And that is part of what that notion of like, you know, quote unquote best self is. It's being more connected. But there's something that gets lost around what that means in a collective system that is not, you know, it is not a place where everyone's doing that, where everyone's able to do that all the time.
Yeah, and what I mean by, well, of really being all of who we are isn't just the, oh yeah, here's my brilliance and here's my shining self. But today I'm in a river of grief. And I don't
Yeah,
even know whether that's my personal grief about something or whether I'm actually tapping into something bigger than me. But it doesn't matter. Let's be with the grief. And in that
yeah,
moment, if some members of the community can be the banks of the river while I am in the river, then let's be there. So it's like, let's respond to what's emerging in the space rather than define what should and shouldn't be in the space. And I
that's really
want to,
beautiful.
yeah, I want to speak to the piece you're saying around,
Bringing the vibe down and
yeah, bringing the vibe down. So people are like, oh, you're bringing the vibe down. And I think there's a piece around that. It's not the whole thing, but there's an aspect of that those of us who are kind of, well, we call them empaths or people that read energy, like the energetics ones. I think we're all like that. But, some of us are more connected to that and find other people's energies. We get really, really impacted by other people's energies. And then how do we navigate that? Because we get impacted with other people's energies, either I have to go and isolate because I can't handle other people's energy. Now I'm the one that's exiled. Yeah.
mhm.
Or we demonize the person who's creating the energy that I can't handle. And there's something between those two responses that feels like where the aliveness is, which is what I was speaking to a minute ago, is how do we respond to what's in the space, taking care of ourselves so that we don't get, overwhelmed and sort of battered, if you like, by the energy, but also not go and run to the cave. Because if we run to the cave, nothing really can transform because we've gone into isolation. So it's like, how can we stay relational and be with what wants to emerge?
Can you share more about that? Because I feel like that example that you've just shared will be very resonant for lots of people that are listening.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of actually many years ago, I was running this workshop. I look back over my sort of workshop career and sometimes I just cringe and I'm like, oh my God. Um, and I had this whole idea. It was a training and I was like, right, tomorrow we're going to be looking at anger. This is what we need to, it's all part of the program and this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be looking at fire and where we've gotten repressed and all of that. And I was super fired up about it. And I came in the room, and I sit down and start talking to the people and, this is what we're doing. And I was reading the room and reading their faces and just seeing there was just this grief in at least half of the room's faces. But because at that point I wasn't, as confident or as comfortable or trusting as I am now, I was like, no, this is terrible. We're doing anger stuff today. We're going to be going out in the woods and screaming at the trees and all of this. And I could feel myself pulling in all these different, like, a magician was coming in and I was thinking, how can I get these people to get on board with my program for today? And the
Mm-hmm.
more I tried to do that, the worse it got. The worse it got. And I could see people's bodies were starting to kind of slump and people were going out to the loo and getting drinks of water and rustling around and it was such a teaching because I just, for ages, I just couldn't let go of my, no, this is what we're doing because yesterday something happened and I saw that this now needs to happen. We need to look at fire. And then, so I went, okay, let's take a break. Let's take a loo break. So we took a loo break and I was like, okay, I'm just going to go outside, put my feet on the ground, come back to my body. And then it was like, boom, okay, I got it. It's like, I need to respond to what's in the room. This was a complete game changer for me in my facilitation because up until then, I always do respond to what's in the room, but I don't always trust myself to go with it. And there was just this moment. So I came back in the room and I said, okay, everyone, scrap that. We're not doing that today. Let's be with what's emergent in the space. And I just allowed a space for people to share where they were at. And from that, a natural process evolved, a beautiful ritual evolved, actually, a grief ritual, which suddenly, as soon as we were there, the energy in the room just completely changed. And the women who were going, oh, this is all too much for me, I can't handle it, were in the river going, yeah, it's like, this is where I needed to be, because they could be what was actually true. you know. And there were some people who were like, hey, I wanted to do the anger piece, and it's okay, you be the banks of the river. You know, it's like, you know, the way that the principle of the dolphins, they always swim in such a way that the dolphin that is most weak or vulnerable, they put at the front, so that they're always making sure, and that dolphin gets energy from the fact that all the other dolphins are kind of around that dolphin. And there's something about that. And people, like, when we think individually, like, oh, but that doesn't meet my need, I want to swim fast. You know, people will often say in workshops, oh, well, I don't want to go that slow, I feel like I've already done that, I want to do this more evolved work. And it's like, the evolved work is for us to be able to be in deep listening about what's in the collective field and find ourselves within that, but not just be on this personal flight of, well, I need this, yeah, but also not fall into, oh, I've got to make sure everybody else's needs are met before I can meet my own. Again, it's this, what's this middle place between sacrificing ourselves or self-absorption and sort of solo plight to enlightenment? You know, we sort of tend to sort of swing back and forth one to the other from those places. And what I'm interested in is, what's that middle ground?
Absolutely. I mean, you see that all in the community piece as well, that people will go, they'll live in a community house and then they'll go to the cottage in the woods by themselves.
Yeah.
And then like do that and then, okay, go back to a community house, back to a cottage. And it's like, okay, how do you find that space of being able to be with what is? And I feel that this, the empath archetype and the people pleasing tendency, and the but then also that piece about demonizing as well, like when the boundaries, you know, get when the boundaries aren't clear. And
I'm thinking about an experience I had recently. I was in a circle and one person was clearly struggling, like really struggling, like they just sort of flipped out. It wasn't my circle, but it was a circle I was in. And how quickly the circle wanted to pathologize that person and go, we need to take that person out and we need to help them because they can't be in the circle. And actually, when it was unpacked, it was recognized that what many of us were uncomfortable about being in that circle is the mirror of that part of us that was being shown. And we were so relieved not to be that person. Yeah, so, oh, thank God I'm not being that person who's been scapegoated and pathologized as a problem. So I'm very happy to put my focus on that person and help them and be kind and loving to them, because it means I don't have to look at anything in myself.
So both the kind of, so kind of making like that person needs all the support, but also when a group also will be like, that person's the problem. It's the same thing. It's not, it's seeing it's a mirror. That person is like reflecting something back into that community. And the community which is individuals, but as a whole, like chooses to kind of go with one of those responses often, instead of actually just allowing that person to be that mirror and being able to sit with what that reflection is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that particular one is quite close to my heart, because as a child, I was demonized. You know, I was the problem in the family. I was the difficult one, you know, and then they didn't have to look at anything. They could just put it all on me and you know, then apparently live their happy lives. So yeah, that one's close to my heart.